This morning, so welcome to everyone this morning. A couple of reminders, if you don't mind, to make sure that your cell phones are on silence. Also, this meeting is being live streamed, thanks to our great department here getting us out into the whole public and the whole world. So let us announce that today's Mississippi Board of Education meeting held on November 9th, 2023. It is 10 o'clock a.m. We're on the fourth floor of the Central High School building in the boardroom, located at the Mississippi Department of Education at 359 Northwest Street, Jackson, Mississippi. Ms. Werner, if you will, state your location for the purpose of this meeting.
Mary Werner, South Pillow, Mississippi.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Jacobs will lead us in the pledge, and I will lead us in the invocation this morning. So if you will, please stand. Let's mute that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Miss Werner, before I pray, if you could mute, the dogs are coming through.
I am. My problem is my pool guy is here. And he has to get...
All right.
But anyway, we'll take care of it.
Thank you. If you will, please bow with me. Most gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to be here today to take care of the children, the teachers, and the staffs of our school districts in the state of Mississippi. Please provide the guidance for us to make decisions that are in the best interest of our children and our state. In your Son's name we pray. Amen. I have before you today the minutes of the October 19th board meeting and also the November 2nd special call board meeting. Changes or things we need to do with those minutes at this point? If not, may I have a motion to approve those?
Second.
Mr. Jacobs on the motion, Mr. Pruitt is the second. Any other comments or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And Ms. Warner has given us the thumbs up. So you also have before you the agenda for today's meeting. Are there any changes or anything that you'd like to see on the main agenda? Seeing none, we'll accept a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting.
So moved.
Mr. McGehee on the motion, Mr. Miller on the second. Any other comments or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You also have before you the consent agenda. For those that don't regularly attend our meetings, we receive our agenda and background information days in advance of this meeting, which gives us a time to go over, and if there are any questions we have, can ask staff concerning these items on consent. So we try to take care of all these in one motion at the end of the meeting. Anyone to change or take off or the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Mr. McGehee and Mr. Jacobs on the second. Any more questions, concerns? None. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We begin this morning with Gene Cook and one of our fun parts of our meeting each month, and that's a recognition of a fine individual from Starkville High School. So, Gene.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Dr. Margino, Mr. East, board members. It is my honor to present to you the board recognition for the month of November. This month, we are honoring Dr. Darian Spann for his appointment to the National Assessment Governing Board. I would like to invite Dr. Spann to join Mr. East and Dr. Margino at the front of the boardroom. Dr. Spann is currently the principal of Starkville High School in the Starkville-Ottibbeha Consolidated School District. He was named District Administrator of the Year in the 21-22 school year and the Certified Employee of the Year the previous school year. He is a 20-year veteran educator with 14 years of experience as a high school English teacher and 6 years as an administrator. and he is also an adjunct faculty member at Jackson State University. The National Assessment Governing Board is an independent, nonpartisan board created by Congress that sets policy for the National Assessment for Educational Progress, also known as the nation's report card. The governing board identifies subjects to be tested, determines the content and achievement levels for each assessment, approves all test questions, and is responsible for communicating NAEP results to a wide range of audiences. Board members include state legislators, school board members, teachers and administrators, testing experts, and members of the general public. They are selected through a national nomination and competitive selection process. And Dr. Spann is the only Mississippi teacher or administrator to ever be selected to serve on the National Assessment Governing Board. Dr. Spann serves as a member of the Starkville Association of Educators, vice president of the Mississippi Association of Educators, and served on the board of directors of the National Education Association for 6 years. He's a member of the National Council of Teachers of English, the Teacher Education Council at Mississippi State University, and the Mississippi Civil Rights Advisory Committee. He earned his undergraduate degree in English from Belhaven University and earned his master's in education, specialist in educational leadership, and a doctorate in education leadership from Mississippi College. Dr. Spann, you are welcome to make remarks at this time.
Thank you, everyone, for this opportunity. It is a pleasure to be here, and it is an honor to be nominated to this governing board, and I'm excited to represent not only Starkville, the state of Mississippi, on this national board. When I went to my orientation last Friday, they talked about Mississippi and the gains and growth that we've made, and they attributed to MDE and the support that you all are giving to schools across the state. And so I'm honored to be able to serve and to continue that work. If there's anything that I can do more to help in the state, please give me a call. I'm right up the road in Starkville, and I'd be glad to come and do what I can. Thank you again for this opportunity. Thank you.
As he returns to his seat, Dr. Spann, this Millsaps College graduate's very proud of your work at Belhaven and what you're doing right now. So for those of you that don't know, they're kind of across the street from each other, and in my day was always a rival at something. So actually took 2 courses on that campus. Congratulations and represent us well. Dr. Margino.
Okay, just a quick update. We've had a busy couple of weeks. We had our principal advisory committee meeting here where we had principals from across the state just discuss some of the things that were going really well in their districts and some of the challenges as well. Chronic absenteeism continues to be a challenge for us across the state. Also, was able to visit the Mississippi Association of School Administrators Conference and visit with superintendents and principals and bring greetings and kind of have some question and answer time. Also, really proud of our accreditation department. They have been providing trainings for school districts across the state. We've had about 600 folks attend the different accreditation trainings. We've hosted trainings in Meridian, Hattiesburg, and Oxford, and basically Dr. Van Cleve and Dr. Malone. I know she's back there somewhere. I do want to thank them for their work. They really put this together, but we've gotten a lot of really positive feedback about that. So that's been really good. I had the privilege this past week to attend the Southern Regional Education Board state leaders and policy leaders time, so that was really a great time just to share with other states and to learn some things that are happening in some of our sister states that are really interesting, and then also to share some things we're doing. So that was a great experience, and appreciate our team that was there. We had Senator Hobson. He was there as part of the legislative branch, and then also we had some members from our community college board as well. So it was a really good time for a Mississippi team to kind of be together and just kind of plan for some things going forward. So that was a great event. Other events, we had our RESA meeting with our RESA directors on professional development opportunities for next year. Also, our department here hosted about 50 aspiring teachers from Mississippi State and Ole Miss from the Mississippi Excellence in Teaching program. So that was really good. We also had some local superintendents come in and talk to these aspiring teachers. Then our CTE leaders led some college and career academy training recently, so that was also well. We did have another meeting with Representative Felsher and Robert Hiver with the 6th Brigade Southern Region of JROTC, to look at ways that we can strengthen our JROTC programs across our state. And of course, there's so much research that just shows, those kids in JROTC traditionally have better attendance, higher graduation rate, less discipline problems. Just it's really a great program, and so just looking at ways that we can strengthen those programs across our state. Also, we had a literacy luncheon with Representative Creekmore and Representative McCarty Monday of this week, and so that was really good to visit with them. Also been able to visit a couple of schools. I was able to visit Kosciuszko Lower Elementary. Had a real good time seeing their pre-K classrooms and all of their elementary classrooms, and they're doing some phenomenal work over there. And then also last Friday I was able to go to West Harrison High School and visit them. They were the #1 rated high school for 2 years in a row, and so they had a big celebration, and it was great to go and be a part of that and visit with them. Then I was able to go back to the coast Tuesday of this week and visited with in Mr. East's neck of the woods at the Gulfport Chamber of Commerce, their Connections Breakfast, and had a real nice time sharing some of the things we have going on across our state, but also learning about some things they have going on the coast that are really impressive. So that was really good. And then visited at the Mississippi Action for Progress, the Head Start group. I was able to bring greetings to them yesterday at lunch, and so that was a nice time as well. I do want to brag on our literacy team for a moment. They were featured, just the work that's gone on from our literacy coaches and everyone from top to bottom in our literacy department. But they have done some tremendous work. But they were featured on Good Morning America, just the gains that Mississippi is making. And I can tell you from being in that meeting last week with folks from multiple different states, from as far away as Rhode Island and as close as Alabama, folks are really paying attention to the efforts that have been made in Mississippi. So I think we should be really proud of the work that our school districts are doing across our state. Our educators are really making some moves. And then otherwise, we have started our efficiency audit. The state auditor's office are doing audits on and these are just efficiency audits from basically the 13 state agencies. So we have met with the Boston Consulting Group, who will be doing that. So we had our initial meeting with them, and so that's kind of underway, just to make sure that our different state agencies, that we're operating as efficiently as possible. So we look forward to working with them on that. But subject to any of you guys' questions, it's a
Questions from Dr. Martino from the board? All right, thank you, sir.
Sir.
You're wearing the wheels off those shoes, aren't you? And all this stuff, and that's good stuff, though. Thank you very much. As report of the chair, I have a very, in my mind, prestigious honor this morning. I'd like to call Dr. Margie Pulley to the front, and we have a resolution that we would like to read and put across the minutes. Dr. Pulley. Come on over here. Let me embarrass you for a little bit up here. We can do. Getting on the embarrassment part. You work in this business as superintendents, and there's individuals that you hear about before you meet. Dr. Kent and Dr. McGee and those in the superintendent world. This is one that you definitely hear about, and then you have the privilege of meeting later on and understand the power of the person that she is. Whereas the Mississippi State Board of Education appointed Dr. Margie Pulley as the interim superintendent for the Tunica County School District in July 2015. And whereas Dr. Pulley's nearly 50-year career in public education, I'm going to say that one more time, nearly 50-year career in public education had consistently demonstrated a commitment to academic excellence, administrative leadership, and community engagement. And whereas Dr. Pulley has faithfully and effectively served the Mississippi Department of Education as a conservator for the Oktibbeha County School District from 2013 to 2015, where her leadership and determination resulted in improved student achievement, improved accountability ratings, and a successful transition into the new Starkville-Oktibbeha Consolidated School District. And whereas in her current role as interim superintendent for the Tunica County School District, Dr. Pulley has overseen the implementation of teaching and learning as a primary focus in the district. leading to the district's successful resolution of legal issues, increased graduation rates, notable improvements in student achievement, and school facilities, and improving their accountability ratings, including the district's ability to achieve its first C rating in 2016, B rating in 2022 and 2023. And whereas Dr. Pulley started her career as a teacher in the Greenwood Public School District and served the district as an assistant principal, and superintendent, and whereas during her tenure as superintendent of the Greenwood Public School District from 2009 to 2012, she led the district to a successful rating for 3 consecutive years, with Bankston Elementary School earning the National Blue Ribbon School designation. And whereas Dr. Pulley's commitment to education and community includes a history of membership and leadership positions in the Mississippi Association of School Superintendents, the Mississippi Department of Education's Achievement School District Task Force, PREPS, the Greenwood Rotary Club, the Greenwood Chamber of Commerce, the Greenwood Eta Beta Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, and Spring Hill Baptist Church, probably the most important one right there to you. And whereas Dr. Pulley earned a bachelor's degree from Jackson State University and a master's degree and educational specialist degree and doctorate from Delta State University, and whereas Dr. Pulley has dedicated her life to educating students and has always responded to the call of service to advance public education in Mississippi. And therefore be it resolved that on this day, the 9th day of November, 2023, the Mississippi State Board of Education recognizes Dr. Margie Pulley for her contributions to public education in Mississippi. I'd like to
Thank you so very much. The only thing it missed, this resolution missed, was that I am a mother, and a proud mother of 3 sons, and they support me unconditionally. I've had a great career, and if I work until June 30th this year, I would have worked 50 years, and that's a long time. But someone asked me the other day, how did you survive for that long? And I told them it was because I always did the right thing. May not have been popular, but it was always the right thing. I appreciate all of you, MDE. I've had great support from this organization for all of my career, but especially during the time that I served as conservator. I could call MDE, and they undoubtedly knew I was calling, and I got immediate responses to anything that I needed in either of the districts that I served in, Tibaha or Tunica. It has been challenging, but very, very rewarding work. The people in Tibaha and in Tunica at first did not want me there, but I think they appreciate the work, the protocols in place for Tunica to continue to excel. I would expect that if I had stayed, we'd have the 8, but I especially want them to continue to work because they are very capable, can do the work, I know the work, and I'm proud of everything that they have done. And I want to acknowledge, I could not have done this work. When I walked into Tunica, I had lawsuits coming from every direction, and I had an attorney that saw me through all of that. And I can say today there are no lawsuits in Tunica. Ms. May is here with me today. She's a school board attorney. She helped me and walked me through this. And one of my twin sons here, the other one is probably in court. He's a prosecuting attorney, and he's probably in court. But his identical twin brother is here with me, and he is my right hand, left hand, and he supports me and takes care of mother, because usually, and if you've been here as long as I've been here, you know, I used to have my husband sitting there beside me, but he passed away. So my son has decided that he's taking care of me, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate all of you. And I'm still working in Tunica every day, and I tell them that the sheriff hadn't left Tunica yet. That I'm still there until December 31st. But thank you so very much, and I'll tell you this, I take care of my 92-year-old mother, but I'm still going to be working. I'll be working, Dr. Morgino. Trust me, I'll be somewhere working, because she used to tell me, you go home and sit down, you go down. So you've got to keep moving. So even though I'll have this 50-year career, I intend to still work for the boys and girls in the Mississippi Delta. Thank you. I forgot my. But he's been by my side and helping me, and in this transition that's so very important, he is there and has been every step of the way. So I do appreciate him, and he knows that his work is still not over, because we got to successfully transition with this advisory board that we're working with.
Very well. Thank you. I can't see that school board attorney, but thank you very much for your work, because I know that is challenging on its best days, so thank you very much. And then to the family as well. Glad that you were here today. So I guess we move from one of the longest-termed educators in the state of Mississippi in the President's Day to our two youngest board members to give their reports. So we'll start off with Kate this morning. Fill us in.
All right, good morning, everybody. First of all, I missed y'all guys last month. I was taking the PSAT, so I had to skip out. But the last time I saw you was September, so I thought I'd do a little recap on what I've been doing. So just last week, so it was actually last Wednesday, I attended the Northeast Power Youth Leadership Collective, and we had multiple presentations from the TVA and within Northeast, and even leadership presentations. And I really enjoyed, I got to learn a lot about electricity that I just didn't know about. And I even got to go up in the bucket truck. I got to be a lineman for the day, so that was fun. We also had the SSAC conference just back in October, and I got to learn a lot from students from all around the state, and it was really interesting. We had a lot of participation, which I wasn't expecting at first, but it was really great getting to hear from everybody and what they were passionate about and what they had to say. And then in about, I'm not sure how many hours, but I'm headed down to Canton tomorrow afternoon for our first round of playoffs, and then staying the night in Canton because we have our first regional dance competition Saturday morning. So this is the most consecutive time I've ever spent in the Jackson, Canton, Brandon area, but I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be fun. And while dance and football are some of my favorite things about high school, they aren't necessarily the most important to some people. I would argue that the most important part is getting students ready for what comes after high school, college, and career. And one of the ways MDE has started to do that is through CCR classes required CCR classes for juniors in high school. And while this may seem to fix the problem, because if you need to get ready for college and career, let's just take a college and career readiness class, done. But the potential for CCR isn't really being met, at least in my school, and from what I heard at the SSAC. I've heard a lot, so I've been in AP and honors classes since forever, and I've been with the same group of kids for those years, and while I haven't taken CCR yet, they're in CCR right now, and they come and they'll complain to me and just the other teachers and stuff about how they have to keep doing repetitive, easy work, or they'll have like really slow-paced things. And if you've ever taught or been in an AP class, they're very rigorous and fast-paced. And as a student who's been in that environment for about 3 years, I kind of have learned to just thrive in that fast-paced environment. So when you're in a really slow, like baby steps learning class, it kind of gets frustrating, and it's hard for students to pick up on the material or even like hone into what they're learning. Whereas if you're not used to those kind of fast-paced classes, CCR is just fine. And the other thing I've noticed is that there's a big gap in between what students are looking for after high school. There's a lot who are going straight to college and need that ACT prep and the interview prep and the college essay revisions versus the students who are going straight into career and need to learn the difference between soft and hard skills and how to make a resume and how to send an email and things like that. So I think it would be very beneficial if there was a separation between college readiness and career readiness, because chances are if you are in those AP and honors classes, you've picked up on soft skills and all these tasks that you just have to learn as you go along the way, whereas some students haven't learned that yet. And I think it could also be beneficial if either students just pick what it is, or if there was possibly a pre-test for students to take to decide which course they should go into. And I feel like that would really help guide students, because me personally, I've heard that a lot of like the ACT work keys is like very easy things for students that are doing, and they're just not enjoying it, and they would much rather be stuck in a really hard class that's going to challenge them and they'll actually get something out of it. And the last thing that I heard at the SSAC, which it's not in my high school, but I definitely thought it was an issue, was that coaches were teaching the CCR classes. And while CCR would be really great if it was taught by the right people, if we have coaches who have things on their mind that aren't college and career readiness, it hurts the students and they're not getting what they need out of the CCR class. And CCR just is great. It sounds really great on paper, and it has so much untapped potential. And I just really want everyone to take advantage of that class that we already have set in place, so that way students can get what they need out of CCR.
Good job. Katie's referring to the student advisory team that our team met with, and these are comments that we're hearing across the state. So your challenge is to go back to that group and help design, make better, whatever, from the student perspective, so to bring that to us. And I agree, there's a difference in all school districts across the state. We're at different points in learning across the state, have different resources across the state. But I do think if students could really pinpoint all students in a path to get you to what you're going to do after college, I think it's important. I think that's what you're hearing from that group. So thank you very much for that. And I know Wendy's shaking her head back in the back because we know we're working on those things as well. So thank you for that report. Charlie, it's my understanding you brought your bodyguard with you today. That's
right.
Is that true?
That's very true. Yes,
Would
sir.
you? I think we allowed Kate to introduce her mom one time. So do you want to introduce Dad?
My dad is somewhere. Is he? Stand up, Dad. Yeah. He has the unfortunate honor of being my dad. He's my driver, my chauffeur, my bodyguard all in one. So he takes care of me, and he has to deal with me more than y'all do. So here we are.
Glad to have you with us, sir. Thank you very much. All right, Charlie.
Yes, sir. So good morning, everybody. I trust everybody's having a great start to your month. I swear these meetings are getting closer and closer. I know y'all are all looking forward to Thanksgiving break. I know I can't wait. I wanted to provide a short update before I get started on where I am in my college application process and scholarship application process. Once again, please say a prayer for all our seniors in Mississippi. It's a tough thing to go through this, writing essays and interviews, and am I good enough? Self-doubt, right? So I've applied to a few private schools up north. I've been admitted to Ole Miss. I've been assured of appointment to West Point pending Senator Wicker's nomination. And I've been offered a 4-year full tuition Army ROTC scholarship to Harvard, Georgetown, or Ole Miss pending acceptance. So that's where I am. We're going to see. I've had more alumni interviews than y'all can count. So I'm pushing through that right now. But I did want to touch on something that I missed at my report last month. So I'm sure y'all remember last month I spoke extensively on the ACT, the need for ACT prep, and the difference a little help can make. But in this speech, I left out a very important caveat. when talking about standardized testing. And that's that college isn't for everyone. The ACT is a mechanism for colleges to gauge how well our students will perform. And in turn, colleges use the ACT to administer tons of scholarship money every year. However, not all of our students will go to one of our fantastic community colleges or our four-year institutions in the state. So today I want to tell y'all about a program that I'm involved in at Oxford High School called the Portrait of a Graduate Senior Internship Program, run by Dr. Duncan Gray. This program isn't unique to Oxford. I'm sure many schools have senior internship programs, but it's what I know best, so that's what I'm going to talk about. Y'all remember I talked about Oxford's Portrait of a Graduate about a year ago. And Oxford came up with this to not just focus on being college and career ready, but on being life ready. And it had 8 skills. Among these were critical thinking, resilience, cultural awareness, things like that. And so we start very young, and we will take an advisory period. It'll be about 30 minutes every 2 weeks, I believe. And we'll focus on teaching these skills. And now we're moving into the externship part of this. So not sure who's perpetuating this rumor. I think it's Mr. East, but apparently I don't go to school. That's what the MDE thinks. Now, this is partially true, but it's true. It's true due to my career internship. So I get out of school at about 10 a.m. every day after taking my one class, and I drive to the USDA Sedimentation Lab in Oxford, Mississippi, where I'm a student intern in the Sediment Analysis Lab. While no 2 days are exactly the same, if you walked in the lab, you'd find me processing sediment samples in a study on fines and sands runoff in Goodwin Creek in northern Mississippi. Or you might find me in the field dodging rattlesnakes. Now, before I started at the lab, I didn't know the first thing about sediment. I had no clue if runoff was studied, and I didn't even know that many people cared what happened to our dirt. Now, I've learned more about Mississippi's soil than I thought there was to know, and I'm constantly surrounded by dozens of leading researchers. One of the great things about this program at Oxford is that we're teaching interview skills in the real world. So I had to interview for this position. And in my interview, the lead researcher, he's asking me all these questions about erosion. And of course, I don't know the first thing, so I was very frank. And I said, "Sir, I am not an ecologist. I don't know the first thing about erosion, but I'm hardworking and I'm willing to learn." And I was hired. Through Oxford's internship program, I get to refine my real-world skills and dive into a vast, fascinating field that I otherwise wouldn't discover. Now, my position at the USDA is only one of nearly 50 others in and around Oxford and Lafayette. Through the program, students get to learn under professionals in medicine, in athletics, in architecture, and so much more. And this is partnered with Ole Miss as well. The students get a head start understanding what their future employers expect. And the future employers, they get a working relationship with district employees planning for Oxford's future in economic development. Now, the program is now expanding into other career fields, and we intend to provide digital internships in the 24-25 school year. Students who demonstrate interest in technology, they'll have the opportunity to complete certificates with Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and others. Another great opportunity at Oxford is called Workforce Wednesday. Our work-based learning coordinator, Jeff Jones, he sets up speakers every Wednesday for Oxford High School students in our library during our lunch periods. Now, both my dad and my mom have been Workforce Wednesday speakers, and they've gotten to talk about the financial advising, the tax side, and the real estate and law side. Our students at Oxford, they're getting to listen to real-life business professionals, and they get to ask questions, they get to interact, they get to learn all about the opportunities our education system provides for them. Now, you'll imagine that a lot of these questions asked of these business professionals are very similar. And my mom summed it up very well. She's a realtor, and she gave her little spiel and she talks, and then there are 3 questions that everybody asks. How much money do you make? Do you need a degree? Can you do it quickly? Clearly, our students have their heads in the right space. They want to know the facts, and they want to know how much education do they need so they can make the most money, right? Now, this is also great to show them all the different things that they can do in Mississippi. That's one of our biggest problems, is keeping our bright minds in our state. And Workforce Wednesday is a great way to show that we have already really bright people and that our students need to stay in the state. I hope my report today will give the board an idea of what makes Mississippi's education system so special. Mississippi employs thousands of educators who care about our kids, and they're doing everything they can to ensure future success for our students, our economy, and our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. So I think we've heard today that we've got college and career readiness across the whole state, varying levels. The work of this department in beginning that process several years ago, I think is growing. I encourage both of you again to continue to work with the student advisory on what we can do to make this as meaningful as possible as we move forward. So in my little short time here, we've seen a lot of changes in college and career readiness that I think are very beneficial. And one day we'll get close to perfection. I don't think you ever get to perfection, but you always strive to do it. I think the old Air Force, the simpler you do immediately as possible just takes a little bit longer. So this is one of those we've got to do to make sure that every child has a pathway upon walking across the stage as a high school diploma. Thank you for your reports. Thank you very much. It's now time for our subcommittee reports. For those that are new and not normally in attendance, we have subcommittees of the board that meet to go over the items of the board on the agenda, things, questions, and comments, and keep a good hand on what we need to know about what happens in the department. Got a great group of individuals to the thought processes. So first, educator quality, Mr. Miller is the chair.
Yes, thank you. We met yesterday afternoon. Tabs G and H on the consent agenda are what we discussed. Both of these deal with changes in pathways to licensure for different individuals. As you could tell from the board materials, this went through the APA process. There was a lot of comment, both sides with this. The importance of this shows why the APA process works. You put it out, you get comments, you get the feedback, you determine if it needs to be tweaked. Everybody has their opportunity for input. And most importantly, I hope everyone understands, just because MDE recommends something and us as a board pass it, doesn't mean we won't change it if it's not working. And that's where we rely on everybody that this affects to tell us, hey, this doesn't work. Tell us why. So the other thing that we discussed and agree on is two things that come out of this that make this process work is communication and collaboration, which I can tell you from MDE's perspective, they are committed to do that with this. So that's my report.
Thank you, sir. Internal accountability, Mr. Jacobs?
We did meet this morning, and we discussed the internal audit for the Career and Technical Education, CET, Office of Student Organizations. The OSO is responsible for 9 student organizations and school districts across the state, and they deal with a funding mechanism that's really not MDE money, it's their own money, so it's a little bit different situation, but we did audit them. You know, the state, we have authority over them to help them do procurement, accounting, taxes, banking services. That we have our staff that handles all that, oversees that with them. We did do an internal audit of that department, and reviewed with them legal compliance, internal control findings, audit recommendations, corrective actions, which there were some found. And as a result, there will be some quarterly updates on the correction action plans and resolutions provided to the subcommittee until all the findings have been resolved. But it's a good work today, and staff did a very good job, intense on it.
Good, sir. Thank you. Dr. McGehee, School Performance and Accountability.
Thank you very much. Dr. Barrett, Dr. Wendy Barrett and I met with Dr. Paula Vanford and also Adam Morris regarding our accountability from this past year and some of our results going forward and suggestions, and they will have a detailed report for us presented in PowerPoint style. And I'll have to say that I'm very impressed with where we are along those lines in accountability, and our young people are doing a great job of performing along with our educators and leading our young people to their brighter future.
Thank you, Dr. McGehee. It's now time for our action items, and first up today is Dr. Vanderford on informational on agenda item 1. And Mr. Burrows, too.
Yeah, this first. A couple of presentations here on the first two items that I'll let Alan walk through. So the first item is related to our achievement gap analysis. So annually, in accordance with the Every School Succeeds Act, we, in the Office of School and District Performance, calculate and produce the achievement gap data by subgroup based on our most recent results of the Mississippi Statewide Assessment System, or our MAP results. And so we do this and disaggregated at the state and the district level by subgroup. So in Alan's, to not repeat myself, in his presentation, he'll talk about the methodology and share that subgroup analysis with you. So at this time, I'll turn it over to him and let him walk through the data presentation.
All right. So gap analysis ties in well to our vision and mission, making sure that all students are prepared, and touches well on all of our strategic plan goals, especially around our measures of accountability and student assessment and student outcomes. So this gap analysis is going to be based on last year's assessment data, that's 22-23, for the MAP program in ELA and mathematics and 3 through 8 in high school intercourse assessments. This is just the MAP assessment, not MAP A. And it also will be for intercourse assessments. It's going to be the first attempt of any of the assessments, no reattempts that are included. So this is just kind of a flow chart of what we do. We're identifying those students in the assessments this past year, first attempt, and then we divide it up into the subgroups, the major subgroups, which I'll go over shortly, calculate the proficiency ratings for each of those subgroups, and then we calculate a gap in student performance or proficiency rates from the subgroup to the reference group, which I'll also go over shortly. And then we look at any change in that gap from from the prior year to the current year. These are our major subgroups that we're considering. And then the ones with the red check mark is the reference group for each of these categories. So we look at race, economic status, disability status, English language status, and gender. This subgroup analysis fits in well and is in accordance with the Every Student Succeeds Act, which has a goal for kind of focusing on highlighting student subgroups and making sure that all students succeed. The federal government requires us to have long-term goals for student subgroups, and for Mississippi, that is that all students reach 70% proficiency in all assessed subject areas by 2027. So we'll report on the gap to the state goal as part of this report, and that state goal is 70% for each subgroup by 2027. Okay, so the first part of the gap analysis that I'll talk about, and all of this, this is a district level report table. This is going to be the majority of the 110-page report that you have. So this lists out each district and the subgroups that are represented in that district. So each subgroup that has a count for that subgroup will be included. You'll notice that some districts don't have a particular subgroup listed in this table. That's because there were no students represented in that subgroup. If you see an asterisk in the count, that means that the student subgroup represents less than 10 students, and we mask those for federal reporting requirements. This table, if you'll see, the first 3 columns are kind of a blue color. Those represent the percent proficient in 2023 and the gap between the subgroup performance and the reference group. The next next 3 columns in the green shows last year's data, so the count of students, percent proficient in each subgroup, and the gap. And then the next couple of columns in the yellow there will show whether there's a decrease, increase, or no gap from year to year, and what that increase or decrease amount was. And then the last two columns in these tables represent the gap to goals. So that's the difference between the proficiency rating for that subgroup and the 70% goal. We have 22 and 23 data in those columns. This is just a state level roll-up of the data, looking at English language arts and subgroup performance. You've got 2022 gap in percent proficient to your reference group, and then 23 gap in proficient to your reference group. And then on the right-hand side just shows the change in the gap from 22 to 23, highlighted those that are improvements in green, just so there's no confusion there. So a reduction in gap is good. And then there's a couple that have just a bar in there. Those are subgroups that do not have a gap to the reference group. So they're outperforming the reference group. This is the same data for math at the state level. Again, those in the green on the far right side are improvement, closure of the gap. And then those that are positive are showing where the gap is increasing to the reference group. Okay, and then these tables will report the gap to goals. So this is the difference between the proficiency rating of the subgroup and the 70% state goal for each subgroup, and then the change in and the progress of meeting that 70% goal. So we see improvement in each of these subgroups in English language arts because you see a reduction in the gap. This is continued English language arts. The rest of the subgroups, again, we see improvement towards reaching that 70% proficiency rate. And this is the same data reflected for math. And then again, if we have a slash there, that means that subgroup is either is at or above the goal of 70%. Okay, the next section of the gap analysis is a heat map, and this just kind of is a visual representation of these gaps reported by district in ELA and math. The heat map really, as this slide says, works to illustrate opportunities for concentrated support or improvement in specific subgroups within the district. But in general, the gap analysis really is a tool to be used by districts at the district level to identify areas of improvement in specific subgroups. So not just the heat map, but the district reference tables as well. So there's just some color indicators: green good, red bad. I like to use that. But this kind of gives you where our cutoffs are for each of those color indicators. Red just indicates that a gap is greater than 25 percentage points from the reference group. So this is what the table looks like, shows at the district level. The way to read this is from the left-hand side, you'll see columns that are shaded in blue. Those are our reference columns. And then the immediately following columns are our gap calculations. In the event that there's not a count or a count of at least 10 in a reference group, so you'll see the first district there, they have an asterisk for their proficiency for the white subgroup, meaning they have less than 10. So there's not a gap calculated for racial groups for that district. So you'll see that consistent across. So your next shaded blue column after race is not economically disadvantaged, so you'll see a gap calculated for those that have both students represented in both of those populations, not an economically disadvantaged.
The next group is disabilities. Then you've got students that are limited English proficiency or not limited English proficiency, and then our gender subgroups on the right-hand side. So what a district should do is look at where they are in this table and look at those the shadings for those specific subgroups to know at a quick glance where they need to work on improvements. And then this is, again, just a roll-up to the state aggregate, keeping the same logic in the shading for the subgroups. This is English language arts. And then our gap in students proficient for mathematics. Okay, do we have any questions?
Any questions from board member? I would like to say that the power of this document not only helps individual school districts, but when you have all of the school districts with this data, you're comparing notes. What are you doing that helped your group? What are you doing? And so the fact that this is out, and you have all the local school districts knowing where each other stands, it can be some great conversation tools to try to work on the gaps as an area or a region, not just an individual school district. And also, thanks for the training that MDE is doing to help us close those gaps across the state. Pruitt.
I do have a question. And Charlie and I decided that he had the same question, but neither one of us had the courage to ask, so I do.
I cannot believe Charlie does not have the courage to ask a question.
Well,
Mr.
I'm
Pruitt,
going to
but
add
I'll
something
go
to
with
that, actually. You're going to like where this is going. My first question, I looked at an example. I've got Hispanic student that shows up here in the gap analysis, and then I have some with a limited English proficiency. And my question is, how are we, is that student counting twice in both of those categories? And Charlie said the term is intersectionality, which is not the word I would have used, because I don't think I would have known that. But give credit where credit's due. How does that work?
Yes, so the student would be represented in both, it's going to be what their race indicator is, and then whether or not they're limited English proficiency, but they would
So
be.
there's some aggregation there.
There's representation in both of those measures, yes.
Also, just a clarification to keep with the green good, red bad. Female good, students with disabilities bad. When I was looking at the heat map, is that accurate?
Yeah, that would be a one way to interpret that, yeah. The gender subgroup, obviously, you see all of the green in the female column. It's based on federally defined subgroups of traditionally underserved populations. And
right.
Of course, we see our female counterparts are doing a lot better in many cases than male. But, again, that's a traditionally.
Kate, you heard what he said, right? Any other questions? Good questions. Thank you for that outstanding report. Appreciate it. John, I think, is up next with some info.
No, sir, we have another. So
We got Dr. Benefit on ACT before we get into this finalization, so please forgive
So
me.
continuing with our data overload, for those of you that are new to the board, we start in August with our MAP assessment results, and every month following that for 3 or 4 months, we're providing all our data results, while at the same time, we're beginning the cycle over again. So our fall assessment window will open soon. So this next item is related to our annual ACT results. Each year, ACT provides us student performance for our 11th grade statewide assessment results for the ACT, as well as for the previous year's graduating seniors for both public and private schools. And then we disaggregate that for the board to show you the public schools only and their performance. So at this time, we'll provide you an overview of our 2023 ACT assessment results.
Okay, again, we're reporting on our vision and mission to ensure that all students are successful and prepared. And this will touch on the same strategic plan goals as the previous report. So just a little background on the ACT. The ACT is an assessment used to predict student outcomes in post-secondary studies. And Primary components are English, math, reading, science, and then we report a composite score for students. There are college readiness benchmarks that are based on the scores, and then there's other information that students provide based that can provide information on career interest and course patterns that students take that the ACT collects. There's a lot of questions that the ACT ask of students that they can collect information on, but we won't report on all of that. The ACT, as I mentioned, reports scale scores, including a composite score, but scale scores for each of the 4 components and the composite score, so we'll report on those today. And then whether or not students meet the benchmarks on these components. These are the established benchmarks. They're established by ACT in these different components. And they predict a 50% chance of obtaining a B or higher on corresponding course-bearing courses, college courses, or a 75% chance of a C or higher on those corresponding courses if a student reaches these benchmarks. Okay, and then our first slide here is going to report average component and composite scores over the past 5 years for our 11th grade students taking the state administration of the ACT. And this is reported through our contract directly with ACT. So just a couple of things of note is the count of students over the years. You'll see what's slightly back up over the past couple of years from the decline during the pandemic. But we're not up to that 2019 rate, 29,000. We see slight increase in component scores for English, math, reading, and then our composite score has a slight increase, but a slight drop in our science component score. So hopefully we can focus on that and get that increase as well. But other components and composite are increased slightly. And 2023 also of note is the 9th year that the ACT has been given to all 11th graders. This next table will report the college readiness benchmarks. So this is the percent of students represented in this report that have received or have met or exceeded the benchmark in each of these components. And then to the far right is the percent of students meeting all 4 ACT benchmark scores. So you'll see we have the same percent as meeting all 4 benchmarks as last year. And then a slight decline in college biology benchmark, or a decline in college biology benchmark, and then a slight, pretty much the same in science, and then a slight increase in the English composition benchmark. And then this is average composite score by race. So of note, our 3 largest subgroup populations, Black or African American, Hispanic or Latino, and white, are slight increases over the prior year. And just as a summary of what we've covered, we've had a slight increase, 157 more students took the 11th grade administration of the ACT. Students that indicated a more rigorous course taking pattern have higher composite scores. Composite scores for the state's 3 largest subgroups showed a slight increase. And then we had 72 districts show a slight increase in score, 59 districts showed a slight decrease, and 8 showed no change or did not have a prior year score. Okay, so the ACT provides us information on the state administration, the state contract of the ACT for 11th graders. They also provide us data on the graduating class. So this is all students that completed in the spring, and it reports their highest ACT score. We get information from both the public and private schools. And this first slide will show both public and private, but we'll also show you the public. So again, number of students tested and the average composite scores for the graduating class of 2023. So this would have been the class of students that would have been freshmen in 1920, the beginning of the pandemic. And we still see this pandemic impact in the data results. Although, while we saw a slight increase in our 11th graders, we're still seeing declines for the graduating class. And then this slide just shows public students. Again, we see decline in this graduating class. These slides, the next two slides will show the college readiness benchmarks, the percent of students meeting the benchmarks for the past 3 years. This is public only. And then this shows all students, average composite score for all students in the state, public and private, but also compared to other states that test more than or equal to 95% of their students. And where Mississippi stands in that average composite score. All right, do we have any questions?
Board members, any questions? Charlie?
Yeah, and forgive me if I'm connecting to subjects that shouldn't be connected. And I know our literacy gains are fairly recent, but a lot of those reading scores seem to be on the downward trend or choppy. And do we expect those to increase, the reading ACT scores, as the kids under this new literacy group get older, or what? Is it fair to expect that?
Yes, it's fair to expect that. And we're also having conversations, Dr. Martino, do you want to speak to like moving that literacy work into middle grades?
Yeah, one of our plans is to move. We've done so much in pre-K through third grade,
Right.
but also you see that gap for kids that are struggling as they move from fourth through eighth grade and get older. So we're actually working with Dr. Boone's team to do some pilots in the spring where we'll basically put some of our coaches in some of our 4 through 8 areas and then try to continue that, just continue this momentum for our kids that are definitely needing a little additional help. Because you know as well as I do, being a high school senior, you know, you see this in your buddies, that if somebody's struggling in third, fourth grade and they come out, that gap, they're going to struggle more and more. As they, so to try to combat that gap widening, we're actually working on that right now. So,
That's great.
yeah,
Great
so-
to hear.
Also, there's no doubt that on those reading that COVID in those years, especially in the early learning years, though we've done well in trying to keep that from being a major piece, it has hurt in the literacy piece. I was most impressed, however, that our writing, our composition work seems to stay pretty steady going forward. So writing, reading, you know, you've got some growth in the writing part, and reading is suffering a little bit. No doubt that we've got to continue to work out of that situation. Any other board members? Okay, now we can move to Judge Craven and his information on the modernization progress of MSIS. Thank you for that.
Mr. East, Dr. Morgino, board members, thank you for another opportunity to come back and talk to you all about MSIS. I think it's been a year since we gave an update on our progress on the system. We are have some really good results to share so far. If we go to the next slide. So the challenge that OTSS faced was take these statements, the vision and mission, and turn it into a modern, future-proof data system. Go. And it's like, there's a lot of complexity in here. And we have to think about every one of these goals as we begin to build out a complex system. MSIS, as a system, is a workhorse for this agency. It manages nearly all of the data that processed through this agency at one point or another. And it's a pretty complicated system. It's hard to really explain as a scale. But I would say is that we took some time, we took some time to plan this out beginning in 2019 and really through the beginning of 2022. Phase 2 is the build phase. And just to give you some sense of the scale of this, we have a primary vendor helping us with the build. We have several secondary vendors who are helping us with the build. Internally, kind of a quick back of the envelope, we've spent about 40,000 man-hours so far of MD staff in conjunction with these vendors to get us to where we are now. We will likely exceed 70,000 hours of staff time to build a system as complex and as critical to the operation of this agency as MSIS. Next slide. So, but what do we really mean by MSIS, and what's the big deal, right? That's sort of a hard thing to explain, and we've been challenged trying to articulate this. So what we've come up with here is a plan here that I'm going to turn this over to Deborah Donovan, who is our Director of Data and Reporting, Data Analysis and Reporting, excuse me, and my right hand, sitting on my left-hand side, but my right hand in terms of the build of this complex system. And so what we wanted to do is sort of show you or illustrate for you the differences between what is and what will be. And then we'll kind of follow up with a few more points on what this has meant for our districts.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to run through the steps that a district has to do right now to get their monthly data submissions through MSIS. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. So don't try to read and hone in. This is just to give you a general overview of the process. So the first step a district has to do is to upload. So they have to get a data file from their vendors and upload it into the MSIS system each month. Then they have to make sure that that file came in correctly, so they're reviewing the errors, and you can see this nice, very modern interface that they have to deal with here. Then they need to review the status of each one of their schools to make sure they've got all the data in. Then we start looking at reports for each one of those schools. So they start running all of these different reports that you see listed here. So many of these, keep going, we're running reports, we're running more reports. What do we do with these reports then in the district? So now I have to review all of the data that came through on those reports, which likely means that I need to pass those reports out to other members of my district team members to review. The reports look something like this, which means they're just reviewing lines and lines of text to try to determine if they have any errors. They don't have any real good summary data to help them understand what might be missing, what might be incorrect. They're literally going line through line, and you saw how many reports that I pulled up that they have to run, each one of those that they're having to go through. So what happens if I find an error? Now I have to, and I can find an error on my own, or I can find an error in MSIS. This is what the errors look like in the current MSIS system. Again, like if you can read the last line on that error, must be format 9.9. Does anybody understand what you would need to do about an error that says that? Like probably not. Districts spend a lot of time trying to work through these errors. Once they find out what the issue is, then they have to correct their data back in their system and go through this process all over again. I've got to re-upload that data. I've got to run all those reports again. I got to review everything to see if I have errors that are cleared. So let's not do that anymore. In the time that it takes for a district to review all of that time, it could be hours and hours and hours of work. I ran through it very quickly. That's not the reality in the district of how long it takes to go through that whole process. So with MSIS 2.0, this is the new process. 4 steps, 2 of them that the districts are directly involved in. You can see the first step is that we have automated data coming from the software systems that they have in the district. It uploads every night. Then the districts are able to get involved, and they can see every day any new errors that come. So as they change data in their systems, they can see if any issues are coming up and go ahead and correct those in their local systems. Then that night, that data updated comes into MSIS, and it clears out any errors that they might have in MSIS. This is the new view that they'll have in the MSIS 2.0 system. So you can see when I log in, I can see I've got alerts, I have MSIS IDs review, I have data that may have errors. When I click into those data errors, it's all organized by the different groups of data. So if I have special education errors, I can give my special education director access to MSIS 2.0. They can view the special education errors, get those corrected in the appropriate place in the district, and address those without someone coordinating all of those reports, handing them out, and working with all the members in the district to get those corrected. So as we've been rolling this out with districts, this is what we've heard in this, the quote there on the left. These types of errors are what I type up for our school MSIS secretaries each month so that they know what to fix. With these new descriptions, I will get hours of my life back. I'm going to be so much more productive with other aspects of my job. So this is in relation to what they see now, those errors like must be format 9.9, and what they saw in our previews that we've done over the past few weeks with the districts, and to see what the error messages are going to look like in the new system. And to me, that quote is really what this is all about. Districts should not be fighting with their data. They should be using their data. And that is the main goal of this system, is to allow districts to use their data more effectively. Now, districts haven't always been confident in our ability. You can see a quote. This was a couple of years ago, I think, at this point, that this quote floated around on one of the listservs. I've heard about it for years, but has any progress actually been made on it? Not sure what's more true, MSIS 2.0 or Bigfoot. Well, gauntlet thrown. We have embraced Bigfoot as our mascot for MSIS 2.0. That quote came from Aaron Lewis, a technology director in Bay St. Louis, Waveland. And we have geared all of our training around, and we've gamified the training. Melissa Banks in our office has done a wonderful job of developing a training program for the districts where they go on the hunt for Bigfoot. So they're earning badges as they go along. Like at a few conferences last week, we looked at historical data within the new system, in actual reports that are in new MSIS 2.0. So they all earned their time traveler badge. So that's been really fun. And you can see Aaron pictured here in his MSIS 2.0 t-shirt. So we're hoping that we're making a believer out of him as well. So just to talk about, this is a map showing all of the districts that have participated in the design of MSIS 2.0. So we're not building this system and handing it over to the districts and crossing our fingers that it's what they need. They have been involved in all of the design process along the way to let us know what's most helpful for them and how to get involved in that. We have started our pilot year now. So districts actually have access to MSIS 2.0. We have over 98% of districts that have signed in to MSIS 2.0. We had 2 more join up this morning. So that percentage, I'm sure, is even higher now. And then as we go through this process, as we roll out different features and functions, we're continuously getting that feedback from the districts. So this is just what we're planned for the end of the year. So in October, again, I mentioned we rolled out that historical data to show districts that came from the current MSIS system in the new system, gave them some enrollment and attendance, and started getting districts access into the system. For the rest of this year, we're going to be working on getting those live data connections, and the data coming every night from the district software systems that they have in place. We're starting with their main system, the student information systems. Then we have assessment data from our files that we receive from our assessment vendors pulling in, and finance data as well. Then we're moving into child nutrition data and personnel data, and then starting to get into some of those calculations. So like once we get enough data in, then we can start really honing in on all those data quality errors and doing things like our graduation rate calculation within the new system to validate all of those.
If I could just throw one note in, a tech coordinator asked me last week, hey, can I use MSIS 2.0 this year when the live data starts coming in to check my data in my system before I pull my 1.0 file? So they're even thinking about trying to access and use the system as it's still being developed and rolling out. So it's good feedback, good training, but also they're trying to think even about how do I start to leverage that the insights and information that the tool gives them now. So the districts are clamoring for us to get this done. I think, Mr. East, you said get it done already. I think something along those lines to us a couple months ago. And so I think the districts are definitely hungry for this to be finished.
one big piece of this work is working with all of those software companies, those vendors that the districts have to get that data flowing in every night automatically. So you can see we have two main student information system vendors in the state, Central Access and PowerSchool. So this is to give you an idea of the progress that they're both making on getting those data automations in place. They're all both working with us very well. And making progress. They're just at different points in their own timelines and their own calendar of events to get data flowing in, but we're looking forward to accelerating this progress as well, so districts can start seeing that data coming in from their vendors. As far as the plans from here on out, you can see we just finished up that district pilot in October 2023, kind of in the middle there. Which was the first big release, the first time districts could log into the new system and start to get familiar and start to receive training. We have additional road shows coming up in January and February. And then we'll start even more training in between that road show and a full boot camp that we're planning for the summer to get them ready for the live launch on July 1 of 2024. And we'll have many virtual opportunities to make sure that every district is prepared and feels confident that when we flip the switch in July, that they're ready to use the new system.
So just last thought to leave you with, I mentioned this was a big, massive build of a big, massive system. We are more aggressive and more wide-ranging in terms of what we're building out in our modernization efforts than our other states. Deborah and I hosted 4 weeks ago, a walkthrough. 16 states joined us. About 120 plus odd people have came and attended, but we went and did a deep technical dive through the system on the back end and showed what we've developed. We followed up with a meeting at Microsoft with a handful of SEC states in Atlanta. The following week after that, which is just a couple of weeks ago, we were in Jacksonville for IMAC before we did the training at the coast in Biloxi. We were getting a lot of inquiries from states trying to figure out, wait, how did you do that? What are you doing? What does this mean? And then yesterday, it was just yesterday, we actually, Microsoft hosted us for their Data and AI U.S. Education office hours and gave a presentation, again, trying to help the world understand what it is that we're building. And it's starting to cause people to think anew about how they've thought about their own work because of our success so far as we move forward towards go live next summer. So that's our report for now, and happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
What does your support protocol and staff look like for July 1? I mean, what happens when everybody calls in on July 2nd?
Well, one thing that's really cool, and this is under Dr. Vanderford's shop, is when we rolled out in January the new MECA system for the licensure, they actually had a lot less training and no calls coming in terms of difficulty managing the system. I think part of modern development is building something that is very intuitive. I think all the engagement that we're doing now is it's both a combination of testing and training and preparation. Our mantra is no surprises, right, come July 1, but we do have in the budget request that you all approved for the next legislative session, the next fiscal year, includes the funding package that we believe will give us the adequate resources to be prepared to not only roll the system out effectively, lose the vendors that were paid for out of ESSER dollars, and continue to grow and evolve the system based on feedback from the districts, from you all, from the legislature, or whomever.
And we have a current help desk team that supports the MSIS 1.0, so of course they'll all be transitioning over, and it'll be all hands on deck, people getting pulled to help out on that.
And if you know Tamala Matthews, she's our point person on providing that support, but it is a team effort for all of OTSS.
The question is, if Tamla can help me with all the stuff she's had to help me with, she can do it.
Right, you guys are our canaries in the coal mine, that's right.
Anybody else?
I just want to thank, John, they have worked just incredibly hard, their whole team has, and went down on the coast and had I think the largest conference attendance they ever had for the kind of the users conference, and it has just been, the feedback has been really great. But this is, it's been exciting to see because it's something they've kind of built with the districts together. It's not a canned product purchased off the shelf. This is something they've really put a lot of time in to build. So just appreciate the work that you guys have put onto this. It's looking really good, and we're excited for districts to start using this. So thank you.
Sure.
You mean the meeting on the coast that I actually missed and John reminded me twice about? Is that the meeting you're talking
That
about on
would
the
be the
coast?
one.
Okay.
Yeah, so just a quick point on that. So Alex Manning is the CEO at Central Access up in Ridgeland, and they provide assist services to just about most of the, I'd say about north of 75% of the state are Central Access customers. They had to shut off registration. Too many people were coming, and he actually sent me a nice note saying, your prediction was true. If we were going to roll out MSIS 2.0 at Central Access Conference, I told him, you're going to get a lot of people showing up. And we actually had overflow. We had a session the following week for about 75 people who couldn't get into the session at the conference to be able to see the new system. So there's been a lot of interest from the field, and it was a great conference. I'm sorry, Mr. East, you weren't able to make it, but we'll get you the next time we're down there.
I will tell you that outside of the student achievement, pulling this off for the school districts will be a great relief. The ease of the data. I really believe you're going to free up time for some personnel to get back into our core business of teaching school and that kind of stuff with this when it finally rolls out. A lot of training going on beforehand, which I think will also help on those July 2nd, July 3rd phone calls. So again, thank you very much for your work.
Thank you.
Now to some action items we'll need to take a vote on. Dr. Gavin and I believe Dr. Vanderford are up on the first 4.A.
Good morning. We're bringing to the board one contract and one grant for approval. We have one contract with the National Center for the Improvement of Educational Assessment. This is a 7-month contract, basically to bridge us over till we're able to issue our full RFP for starting July 1st of next year.
Any questions about that grant? Motion to approve. Mary's got her hand up. We'll let her have that one. And Ms. Barrett on the second. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, 5. Dr. Gavin.
Okay, action item 5, we're bringing forth to the board to approve our 21st Century Grant. It is a 4-year grant for $36,953,573, and you have a list of all the approved sites behind the board item.
Any questions about the 21st Century Grant? May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. McGehee, Dr. McGehee. Second? Mr. Jacobs, any other questions or concerns? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mary's got hers, we're good, thank you. All right, you have before you the consent items A through K. There were no questions earlier in the meeting. Has any of them come up since that time? If not, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Dr. Barrett?
Second.
Second, Mr. Pruitt. Last time, any questions or concerns? Motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed? Very well. I believe it's the time for our agenda to consider the need to go into executive session. None today? All right, that makes the meeting a little shorter today. I do want to give you a little progress where we are on our superintendent search. The recruitment period for this project began on August the 14th and closed on October the 19th. On September 5th, the Communication Office released a stakeholder survey to, I think, just about everybody in the state that was interested in going and filling it out. I know that was the case. That closed on September 22nd. The survey results were released to the public on October the 20th. On November 2nd, the State Board met with McPherson and Jacobson, our consultants, to discuss the candidates who applied for the position and viewed applicant videos, and have selected a group of sitting finalists for interviews to be held on December 11th and 12th. Following the semifinalist interviews, there will be a group of finalists that will be selected for interview on December 20th. At this point, those finalists will be announced to the public, through a MDE release through our Public Relations Department. and that our goal is to hopefully have a state superintendent appointed by the state board on December 20th with a hire date of July 1, pending Senate confirmation. I think we're now down to the point that we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Dr. McGehee with a hearty and Mary Werner with a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much for being here today.